All right, and welcome everyone. America's Chamber panel webinar brought to you right here from Dallas, Texas, and wherever you are. In our new normal, we don't know where we are, we're everywhere. But anyway, welcome. America's Chamber for Business is a chamber of inclusion and diversity, and we're very proud to be a local to global chamber. So I'd like to welcome all our leaders and everyone present, and especially our panel. And I'd like to turn it over to Phil Claybrooke, who's going to be our moderator. Mr. Phil, welcome.
Hey, Herb, thank you very much. And for those of you that are on Zoom and not familiar with it, you have at the top of your screen something called a gallery view and something called a speaker view. If you switch to and click on the speaker view, you will see the speaker as they are talking. So with that, let me introduce you to our panelists. I'm very honored to have these three guests who are great examples of inclusion and diversity in their own respective fields. Anthony Jerome Webb, better known to you as the infamous Spud Webb, retired NBA star. Alicia Moore, Director of Inclusion at TD Industries, with a strong HR background in other industries as well. And Ann Badmus, attorney at law, and Ann specializes in immigration and represents clients worldwide. So I'd like to welcome our panelists. Welcome to the day, and I'd like to have each of them tell you a little bit about their story. And we'll start with you, Alicia, if that's okay. And you're on mute, Alicia.
Yep. So good afternoon. Thank you, Phil, Ann, and great to meet you, Spud. I'm a real fan of basketball all my life. So I grew up watching you. So it's really exciting to serve on this panel with you as well as you, Ann, as well. So a little bit about my quote story is I'm not a Texan, but I feel like I'm officially a Texan because I've spent a whole summer. I've got a whole summer under my belt. I come from Wisconsin, so I'm a big Bucks fan, Mr. Webb. But I started my career really in inclusion. It really dates back to being introduced to servant leadership at Marquette University when I was a student there, where I did my undergrad work, and then I went on the stretch to get my MBA. And I've primarily served in DE&I roles, health industry, and also in retail. And you know, my philosophy of DE&I is to always take a bespoke approach because every industry is different, every company is different, and it is important that any type of strategy that you align with DE&I, that you make sure that it is representative of the company and the organization, because if it isn't, then it won't be sustainable. So that's just a quick little snippet about my story, and I'll pass it to Ann.
Please.
Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me on the panel. It's great to meet you all. I am an immigration attorney, as Phil mentioned, and while I'm not really don't have much training in D&I, just basically in my career, I think that's pretty much what has been happening because of the clients that I have been working with. I started out as an attorney almost 30 years ago, and my focus was in corporate in Delaware, and I moved to Texas about 20 years ago, so I'm almost a Texan. I think I'm a Texan at this point, okay? I actually started working in immigration law about 20-some years ago, and it was really more of a personal reason because I had grown up so much with an immigrant family. My mother is from Korea, and I have aunts and uncles from there, and just pretty much when I got married, my husband is from Nigeria, and it just was really sort of the thing that seems like, well, I can really, you know, do something and help people to immigrate, because I just felt like it was just a great area of practice. So I started doing that. I had worked in other areas of law as well, but it just really spoke to my heart to work in immigration. And so that's really what I've been focusing on for so many years. So I'm really happy to be here and hopefully give some of my knowledge with respect to immigrants and how those contributions have continued to make our country great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
And I'll pass it on, Spud.
Spud, can we have you next?
Yes, first of all, I want to thank for having me. Two beautiful young ladies on here makes me look way good, way good. But my sister, I love to see there's two women that are doing great things, because my sister's a pastor. So where I go to church, so I always see her do good things, and ladies in the church good things. And I have 3 sisters and a daughter, so and lucky to still have my mom here. But it's good to see people doing well. Now I grew up in Dallas. I know that she probably a Buck fan and a Green Bay Packer fan, which we're not gonna get along on that end. But like I say, I played basketball in the NBA for 12 years now. I'm the president of basketball operations of the Texas Legends. And my idea when I was coming along is to make sure the kids that in the Dallas Boys and Girls Club, that they didn't have to suffer and do the things, didn't have the things that we had when we were growing up. So I've been raising money for the Dallas Boys and Girls Club for over 30 years, and let alone with playing the NBA in Atlanta, Sacramento, Minnesota, and Orlando, and Italy for a year, that I got to come back home and work for Donnie Nelson and Mark Cuban with the Dallas Mavericks, and keeping other players and front office and whatever in professional sports, that kids are coming out of college or retiring professional athletes that want to keep their dream alive of being a professional athlete and coaching, if it's a front office work or anything like that. So, and sponsorship, because that's how I met Phil and you guys with the sponsorship that you do with our Texas Legends in Frisco. So I keep my my little success story as short as it can, because I like to try to help other people. That's not what I'm about to spotlight. I try to let other people be successful and get the opportunity to succeed, no matter where they come from.
Hey, Spud, I'm gonna let you keep on talking a little bit, because as we talk about inclusion, I know your height in your early part of your playing career was something that some coaches saw as something that maybe an opportunity preventing you from success. So can you share with us a little bit about that diversity of being short along the tall players, or amongst the tall players?
Absolutely. I only played 1 year of high school basketball because it probably thought I was too small. I probably couldn't play. And then I went to junior college and won a national championship, all state in basketball, won a junior college championship, went to the Final 8 at North Carolina State and played for the infamous Jim Valvano, and started and left there within the top 4 in assists, and never got an opportunity to play professional. So wasn't a guy under 6 foot playing at the time in the NBA. So naturally, what do they do with a guy that's under 6 foot, when Magic Johnson was the point that everybody was trying to get to, which nobody could be able to get to that. But I just tried to work hard, and once the opportunity came, I tried to go out and prove them that if they let me go, that they made a mistake. So I never went out on the floor thinking, hey, I'm the smallest person out here. I always went out there going, oh, once they throw the ball up, all the height and the hype goes out and they have to produce it. I just tried to produce it all I did. Like the first NBA game that I played, that I saw, I played and started in, because there probably wasn't any guys my size playing in the NBA.
So from an inclusion standpoint, they missed an opportunity, but by including you, you actually did some things for other people along with the NBA to bring in additional tickets, additional revenue, and additional fans. So
absolutely. I mean, when I played in Atlanta, every one of our games was on national TV. So whatever I did, or whatever I said, or whatever I wear had an effect on kids, the community, and a national spotlight, because Ted Turner was the owner of our team. Every one of our games is on national TV every night. So I watched a lot of the coaches that played before me, former players, and I always try to sit down and talk to them and see what direction I needed to go in, what I need to do to try to help in the community, what I should not do, and they always would give me those advice.
Well, thanks, Spud. And I'm going to move on and ask Alicia a couple of questions about the business she's in, and the industries she's in, and the industries that she's been in before, because many of the positions in some of those industries relegate women to administrative roles. So I'd like to maybe ask you, Alicia, some of the tangible results you've seen by including women in leadership roles within organizations and businesses.
Absolutely. And I think what I would kind of start out with is I just want to share a couple of statistics One is from Catalyst, and it stated that companies with higher female representation in top management actually outperform those by delivering about 34% greater returns to shareholders, and that even with only 5% of Fortune 1000 companies having female CEOs, they generate 7% of the Fortune 1000's total revenue. So I think it's clear that companies that have diverse representation, companies that have female leadership simply perform better. I mean, we know that the research shows that. But what I have seen with respect to our industry is we have seen a lot of positive growth with women who have moved on into project management roles, architectural roles, accounting roles. So we are starting to see the gains that are being made for women who possibly entered the industry in an administrative role, but have continued to advance their careers within the industry.
And in your current industry, I think it's really, really important, because if I read the information right that I've been researching, it says within the next 5 to 7 years, 45% of your senior workforce in your industry is eligible for retirement.
Absolutely.
So I'm assuming the backfill is the ability to increase the labor pool through inclusion.
Absolutely, and I think there are many ways, to do that. I'll share with you another statistic that I think is pretty interesting as well, is that, 15% of the U.S. population is foreign-born, and by 2025, and that's really only 5 years away, over 65% of our new workforce entrants will be women and persons of color. And so it's significant for industries like construction, other industries as well, to begin to build that pipeline, to begin to bring women and millennials and persons of color into the industry to address that backfill.
And you mentioned the word immigrants, which leads me to our legal department, and Ms. Badmus. And
Yes.
I know immigrants were how this country was built. And there's been a lot of discussion about immigrants recently, both favorably and unfavorably. But I'd like your take, especially as it relates to DACA. And those not familiar with the term DACA, it references children and adults that were brought here by their parents that may have been undocumented, but this is the place they lived and know. So can you maybe talk to us about that, Ann?
Sure, and yeah, it kind of builds off of what Alicia was saying in terms of inclusion. And we do have a large foreign-born population, whether they are legally or not legally here. And so when we're talking about DACA, DACA actually is a legalization, sort of a legalization program. But before I talk about that, I just want to talk about the number of people that we think are eligible for DACA. Not everyone has applied for DACA for whatever reason, mainly because of fear of the system, honestly. So we believe that there's over 1 million some young people who are eligible for DACA, but only about half have applied. So right now, if we look at DACA as it is, we have about 600,000 people who have DACA. And DACA in itself is at risk, as you may have heard, whether or not that will continue. So to speak about that particular population, this program was started in 2012, and it's sort of is a presidential program that was started because there had been seen the need to have what we call a DREAM Act. So many people have heard about DREAM Act, where that actually would have been legislation that would legalize a lot of the kids, as Phil mentioned, who were brought here by their parents and pretty much have grown up in the United States. Unfortunately, Congress has never gotten through a DREAM Act, has never approved the DREAM Act, so DACA was sort of a stopgap measure instituted by President Obama. And so it's a program that could easily go away if the president, under the current administration, follows the procedures that the Supreme Court has stated in order to eliminate the program. But if we eliminate the program, we will put businesses not at risk as well, because most of the DACA people who have actually applied for and received DACA are employed. Great majority of them are. And there was a recent report by the New American Economy, which is a bipartisan organization that does research on the economic impact of immigrants. And updating their report from 2017, they talk about essential workers. So we're in the COVID-19, pandemic, and we are really focused on our essential workers. And some key facts to know about that is about 62,000 of the essential workers are DACA eligible immigrants. So they're already working and they are essential. If they eliminate DACA, you eliminate quite a bit of a workforce for essential workers. So I'm sorry, 62,000 are essential healthcare workers, but about 480,000, great majority, are essential non-healthcare workers. So our essential worker force is quite, made up of quite a few DACA eligible individuals. So that is definitely something that we should be aware of in terms of either continuing DACA or having Congress enact a DREAM Act that would allow these people, these individuals, to actually be fully integrated into our workforce.
So as we look at some of the immigrant population, it's pretty important to our economy that they're already contributing, and removing them would also affect our economy and our growth. So exactly. That's interesting from that standpoint of inclusion. And Spud, let me ask you, are you in the airport, you're ready to catch an airplane, or what happened there?
Yeah, I'm at the gate right now.
Okay. Hey, before you leave us, I got a question for you. Hey, during your playing career, many of the players were people of color, primarily Black athletes. However, much of the head coaches and the front office and everyone in leadership were white Caucasians. But over the recent years, this is changing. What favorable effect is this having on the game in terms of revenue, fans, marketing, and so forth with this change, and the players' motivation?
Well, I think the highest going global, but I think Adam Silver, the commissioner and the NBA, has done an excellent job in hiring minorities and putting them in positions and things like that. Never enough in the front office and coaching me, but I can't complain about what he's trying to do and putting. We have, I think, almost one lady coach on every team now. So everything that the diversity and inclusion that the NBA is doing globally and everything has been just unbelievable and keep growing. And that's why I guess you see the guys today getting large contracts, because we're such a global game. But if you look around to a lot of the teams around the global nation, with like guys like Sam Perkins and Mutombo, they're going to different countries every month trying to promote the NBA global inclusion programs before. So some of the kids, when they do decide to come work in the NBA, they already know everything, the insides and outs, the opportunities they have to succeed in sports and whatever they want to be. So what Adam Silver is doing is I can't complain. He's done an excellent job. He's hiring minorities. He's putting minorities in good positions so they can grow and learn. So I have no problem with that. I just try to do the same thing on a lower, not a lower level, but with the G League team and the Texas Legends is hiring different coaches, different ethnic groups. We have all types of charities that come to our game, and we have diverse groups that are, as you know, with the Legends, what we're trying to do. So I love being a part of the family friendly that we have with the Legends.
Tell you what, before we lose you, I'd like to share something with you. So it's a 1-minute share before we put you on that plane. So give me 1 second. Share my screen here. Might be some people you recognize.
I'm just surprised it's not in black and white film. It's so old film.
So let's see if we can't hear it.
Actually, to win it, nobody believed. Maybe get dunked one and that'll be it. I knew the repertoire of dunks I could do as a dunk since 12th grade. And now, Spud, first attempt.
As you know, Phil, I was 22 years old at that time, and I was basically trying to make the team at this time that are going to the dunk contest, because they only asked me 2 nights before the dunk contest because they probably thought I wasn't going to be around. But luckily that Doc Rivers hurt his wrist, and I ended up starting a lot of games before he came back. And I want to say to the field, to the ladies, keep up the good work, because I know it's double hard when you're trying to get in different positions at everything, because like I say, I have a sister that's a pastor now, and when she first started, and you know, when you're in a old school Baptist church, they don't want you to be a pastor as a lady. So, but we're non-denomination now, so she's a overseer of our church.
Well, Spud, I appreciate it, and I know you got to catch an aircraft there.
Yeah.
But we got a chat line out there, and if you guys have some questions for Spud, I'll be happy to get them to him. And hey, Spud, I don't know if you know it's behind me, but I'm telling people how I got you here today. This is saying play free golf or your dry clean.
That's where I'm on my way to now.
Hey, and I still got your cigar from 3 months ago. So.
Well, my birthday was last Monday. I just used it as that.
Okay, have a safe trip, and we'll let you go there. And all you have to do is, I think Herb can have you leave or help you leave if you can't check the leave button there. Anything you want to close with and let us know before you head out?
I just want to thank you for having me, getting an opportunity to spread the word that, you know, diversity groups and we can make it in this world, and see two beautiful, smart young ladies on here that's spreading the word. What they're doing is way more bigger than being, they call it the hero in basketball. What they're doing is saving lives.
Yep. Appreciate you, man.
All right, thanks.
Safe trip.
All right.
With that said, let's go back to our guest. And Alicia, I hope you enjoyed Spud's talk there. I fortunately get to see him a lot more often than I want. No, I'm just joking. But anyway, Alicia, when I look at your industry too, and I talk about the current workforce, many of the current workforce in the construction and especially contracting industry are bilingual, and some are not bilingual, and some have English as a second language. So can you sort of expand on that and tell us how that helps to have a variety of people in your organization that can help communicate safety policies, practices, and procedures when you have this type of population you're working for or working with?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, this is true for a lot of industries where you have people who are bilingual or have English as a second language. But what I can share with you at our organization is we make sure that all of our materials are translated into Spanish. And one of the things that we have, will begin to incorporate is to really start to look at our different markets within our company, because we do have locations in other areas of Dallas, like for instance, San Antonio, which has a huge Hispanic Latino population. I actually think it's larger than Dallas based upon the current census tracts, but really begin to look at those markets and figure out what the needs are, you know, because oftentimes belonging and equity is more than just translating materials. It's celebrating the things that are very near and dear to these populations. One of the ways that we've started doing this at TD is the acknowledgement and education around Diversity Heritage Months. September and October is Hispanic Latino Heritage Month. We will be looking at all of our different demographic populations. Looking at our geographies to figure out ways, both in the field and office, that we can begin to engage, you know, our partners in this learning so that they can begin to learn more about each other. But I think taking it that step further than just translating a form or translating, you know, safety materials, but really taking that extra step of getting to know that population is extremely important. And I think for us, it really capitalizes on our core value of celebrating the individual differences of our partners.
Thank you very much. And Ann, we talk about immigration, we talk about contributions. Can you really give us a snapshot of why immigration is so important to our economy and why it's something that we should look at in different ways in terms of how our economy is positively and favorably affected by immigration? Sure.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of theories out there, but I like to kind of report the facts as far as I know in terms of some of the data and the studies that have been out there. And I kind of want to focus on Dallas, and Alicia talked a little bit about that, and kind of see what our population is like in Dallas as far as immigrants are concerned and their contributions to that. So I'm going to share my screen now. I hope I can do this. Okay, hopefully that will work. Does everybody see that? Okay. So basically, this is a study that was done, and I'm gonna, sorry, it's not showing as well, but this is a study that was done again by the New American Economy and talking about Dallas County. And so some of the statistics there really is kind of, revealing as far as the population growth. So population growth, and this goes back to 2017, hasn't quite been updated yet, but the population growth really can be attributed quite a bit in Dallas County to the immigrant population increase. We see about 14.8% growth in this area. And overall, I believe it says Dallas County has about 25%, almost 25% population, foreign-born population. But what's really interesting in terms of economics is the spending power of those immigrant households. So we see here back in 2017, about $17.5 billion being contributed by immigrant households to the Dallas County or the Texas community, Texas economy there. And then housing, of course, is a big part of that. So we see quite a few of immigrants, of course, buy homes, and that's definitely contributed to the housing market here, which is pretty good, especially for sellers at this point. And then as far as, well, I won't go to all of this because I don't have much time, but one of the things that I think Alicia referred to is that our population is getting older, and we do need to make up for that loss of working age individuals. And what we see here is that basically in Dallas County, about 86% of our foreign-born population is actually working age, whereas our US-born population is a lot less than that. So that's where we're going to see a lot of the growth there in terms of working labor force. And then the last area I want to talk about is STEM. So you can see our STEM workers, which is really, technology, science, technology, engineering, and math. That is a huge part of our growth in our economy, and we have quite a few of the immigrants in that particular workforce. So just looking at those statistics, and I have a whole bunch more, I don't have time to go through all of those, as you can see, there's a huge contribution by immigrants to the economy in Dallas County, but also overall to Texas and the country as well. So there's a lot more statistics out there, but I thought I'd share those.
That's great. That's fantastic. In fact, this whole thing is how inclusion brings power. And I think you guys are showing that very specifically, from the sports arena to the business arena, to the law arena, to the immigration arena. And I'd like to let the audience know there is a chat box that is on your Zoom platform. And if you want to ask some questions of the panelists, type in that chat box, and I'm sure Herb can capture that. But before we do that, and as you are doing that, why don't we let both you and Alicia have some summary comments about your views on inclusion and the power it brings, not just economically, but overall. And Alicia, we'll start with you. I thought we would, but did we lose Alicia out there, Herb?
I think we did.
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead while she's getting back on.
Sure. My thoughts on diversity and inclusion. So I have, I'll just go back a little bit in terms of my personal history. So I didn't mention in my intro that I grew up in North Carolina. My father was in the military. So first 5 years of my life, I was pretty much an Army brat, I guess. And I traveled throughout the world, lived in Korea, lived in Germany, and actually lived in Texas for some time. But when we finally settled back in my father's hometown in North Carolina, which was about 1968, 69 or so, we settled back to where his family lived for many generations, in fact, and it was a very segregated community. Basically, we had blacks that lived on one side of the tracks and whites that lived on the other. And actually, my first year of school was in a segregated school because North Carolina had not desegregated at that point. So even after we desegregated, I actually still pretty much lived in a segregated community. We went to school, everybody went to school at the same places. However, after school, we did not really mixed together, did not have social events together. So pretty much it was still a segregated community. And when I went to college, it was definitely a different atmosphere for me. I went to a predominantly white school at University of Delaware, and also saw a lot of segregation there as well. You know, so that's sort of my history. So what I'm saying pretty much is that we've come a long way. We still have a long way to go, and I think that we definitely still need to understand our history, how we got here, and we also need to be sure that we don't repeat those, you know, those things that happened in the past, and make sure that we actually work towards diversity and inclusion. It has to be a very purposeful kind of focus. We have to focus on those types of things. It just doesn't happen on its own. There's many, many factors, and all of us who appreciate the diversity and inclusion and appreciate the fact that we're all together. For example, the America's Chamber, you know, I'm so happy to be a member, so glad that our focus is on diversity and inclusion, because it only makes us all stronger. So I'm really, you know, glad that we had this discussion and happy to be a part of it. Thank you.
And I'll conclude from M2R standpoint. Our company is based on helping our clients build and sustain inclusive environments for both increased revenue, increased productivity, and increased team building. We work with school systems and government entities. In fact, I'm very pleased to announce that we'll be working with a very large county here in Texas very shortly with a contract to help them and their thousands of employees work better in cohesive nature and serve their clients better in their community, which is a diverse population type of community. So with that, Herb, I'd like to thank you for allowing us to do this today. And if there are questions from the audience, I'm sure I think we lost Alicia somewhere out there. I'm not sure. But if she's like where I live, there's so much construction, my house gets cut off the internet like at least once or twice a week. But anyway, Herb, back to you, sir.
Well, thank you, Phil. Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Spud Webb. This has been very exciting and very rewarding. And it's an example of what we all can do together. And as members of America's Chamber for Business, this is what it's all about. We're all about a community. We're about business. We're about working with each other. And thanks to all of us, the leaders and everything together. And Phil, thank you for taking on the moderator responsibilities. You did a fantastic job. And of course, Ann, thank you so much, because Ann's also on the board of directors. So we're very proud to say that she's part of the board of directors team. And for all the rest of the board members that are watching and listening, thank you. Thank you. And the chat box is open if you want to ask any questions right now. We got a few minutes, but
I think Alicia's back. So
is she back?
yeah, she's back.
Alicia, are you here? Let me make sure I make her. Oh yes, she's back. Okay, Alicia, you're your co-host, so you can unmute yourself.
My apologies. I'm not sure what happened. Everything froze and my computer got angry. So my apologies for that.
Well,
Hey, welcome to the internet. Hey, Alicia, we just heard from Ann a little summary of her thoughts about inclusion and the power of inclusion as it relates economically, socially, and any other area that you'd like to discuss. So we'd like to give you an opportunity to summarize.
Sure. Yeah, I just would like to say that in summary, I think for me, as I said earlier, you know, having worked in this industry over 10 years, I think that it's important that diversity, inclusion, and equity initiatives and programs and plans be sustainable. And I think that the way that you go about that is ensuring that you have a phased approach, that you understand your industry, you understand your employees. At my company, we call them partners. But I think that is the key to any successful initiative, is it must be sustainable. And the way that you do that is you make sure that you are aligned with mission, vision, and corporate goals and objectives, And then you can continuously look back and reassess, recalibrate. But the key to the success, I think, the secret sauce, if you will, is making sure that those initiatives are sustainable.
Thank you very much, and thanks for participating today. And Herb, back to you.
Well, thank you again, and Alicia, and Phil, Spud, Webb. Thank you for this fabulous, wonderful webinar. It's been very educational, and it's tremendous, and it's going to be good for all of us. And remember, America's Chamber for Business is a chamber of inclusion and diversity. And this is what it's all about. This is the future of business, and it's very important. So thanks to everyone. And again, Phil, thank you for taking the responsibility position of being the moderator. Any final words from you, Phil?
A shout out to my wife, because I know she's watching. I don't know if that's going to be good for me when I get home or bad for me when I get home. But other than that, Herb, no, I appreciate the people participating. And we work very hard on this thing we call inclusion. And I would encourage, as we do our clients always, to change diversity and inclusion in their vocabulary to inclusion and diversity, IND, because diversity means different things to different people, depending on where you sit on the history bus in this great United States. So I would encourage inclusion to come first. And if we feel included, we will promote diversity.
You're right. Thank you, Phil. That is good information. And Phil is becoming the word of inclusion, diversity in the area. Everywhere I go, when I mention Phil, they go, oh yes, inclusion and diversity. So Phil, you're making a big impact, and thank you for your unconscious bias training that you've given us to some of our chamber leaders. It's really been helpful. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, and I've never seen Pete so quiet. So Pete, you have nothing to ask or say?
Oh,
He's putting you on the spot, bro.
Oh, he can't. Let me unmute him. Hold on, Pete. Okay.
There I go.
There you go. Thank you for joining us, Pete. Any words of wisdom?
Nope. Sorry I missed the majority of it. I tried to get on as quickly and get here as quickly as I could.
And I probably pointed Pete out because he's also the executive vice president for the America's Chamber. So people thought I put you on the spot for no reason, Pete. I want to explain I didn't. I had a reason. Okay.
All right.
And I appreciate it. Herb, I think we're at 2:41. We're 4 minutes, giving 4 minutes back to people. And I think we should give them that present.
Does anybody, okay, so we'll go ahead and end the meeting, and thanks to everyone. Thank you very much. This is a great honor, and y'all be safe, take care, and get away from that virus called Corona, okay?
Be safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.